Let's go football. We're big week of all whites footy. When's there? Give me the schedule.
Yeah, so Friday night in Wellington at the Cake Tin. I think it's the Cake. It must be the Cake Tin. You got New Zealand versus Fiji, and before that, you also got the other semi-final, which is New Caledonia versus Tahiti. Winners advance to the final, which will be Monday night in Auckland at Eden Park. Interestingly enough, be curious how big of a crowd they can get to Eden Park because it's probably not going to be a contest football wise. All Whites have been pretty dominant under the last couple of coaches when it comes to playing against the Oceania teams, largely because they don't take them for granted. They get their best players in and they try to score a bunch of goals, and they often do score a bunch of goals. But in particular, they've been just like they run rampant when they play against those teams in Aotearoa. So it's a tough one to imagine Fiji, New Caledonia, or Tahiti running them close. But there is, of course, you win these two games, you qualify for the World Cup. And even if you don't win these two games, if you win the first one and get to the final and then lose, there is still an intercontinental playoff spot, which is what the All Whites always used to have to do before they expanded the World Cup, is you go playoff against one of the other close qualifiers, not quite qualifiers from one of the other confederations. Like last time it was against Costa Rica, before that against Peru, against Mexico, against Bahrain once upon a time when they actually won the one. So even if they didn't win the final, which I guess is not, that's not really the way to frame it, because the All Whites are going to be fair about it. The All Whites are going to win these two games, but whichever of the presumably, well, whichever out of New Caledonia and Tahiti wins that semi-final, they're likely to themselves get that. Well, they will get that intercontinental playoff spot instead, which would be pretty amazing. Potentially, that's got a lot to do with why New Caledonia have managed to make. You don't really talk about signings in international football, but they've made a big signing ahead of these games, and that is Joshua Sotirio, ex-Wellington Phoenix forward. Currently went away to play in India for 2 years, never played a single game after he left the Phoenix because he just kept getting injured while he was in India, but has come back, tried to sort of revamp his career a little bit. I think he was with an NPL side, but he's signed as a mid-season addition to Sydney FC, reuniting with Ufuk Talai. He was on the bench against the Wellington Phoenix this weekend, but I actually think he was an unused sub. I'm not sure I don't remember him actually playing, although it was late on a Sunday night. I might have missed it, but I'm pretty sure he's an unused sub. But he has apparently some sort of link to New Caledonia, so he has committed himself. Formerly an Australian under-20s, under-23s player once upon a time, he's committed to play for New Caledonia for these games. And yeah, the New Caledonia Tahiti squad's obviously French links. They got a couple players that are based in France. I don't know if they're like diaspora players or if they're locals that moved over. But either way, there's a couple of lower league French based players. I think New Caledonia actually have a guy randomly who's playing in Israel as well, which seems like not the place you want to be playing football at the moment, but whatever. Um, yeah, they'll be interesting. Fiji, I think, are quite unlucky here. They should have done a little bit better in their group thing. They finished second in their group, which is why they've been drawn against New Zealand. But they've gone all out. They've planned in like 3 weeks of training camps in New Zealand. They brought in a bunch of New Zealand-based players on top of all their what is usually a mostly local-based squad that Fiji picks. But they brought in a bunch of New Zealanders this race, see who could, who was good enough to make it, and played friendly games against Eastern Suburbs, against Auckland United, against the Wellington Phoenix reserves. No real coverage of those, but from what I understand, they won all 3 games and didn't concede a goal in any of them, which you'd hope an international team would be able to do that against the preseason club teams, but still, those are good results. Problem for Fiji is they have one superstar player. His name is Roy Krishna, and he tore his ACL about 4 months ago, so he's not available. So Fiji will be without their best player, but they do have some good, solid guys, including a few New Zealand-based players, as I say, who did make the final cut. So all these teams are doing the best they can. They're giving themselves the best chances, but it's New Zealand and Oceania football. We tend to win these games, and we almost always win them pretty comfortably when we're playing them at home. So Big prize for the All Whites. Won't quite be qualifying for the World Cup with as much drama and intrigue as they did in 1982 or 2010, but still, you get to go to the World Cup, and we do have a generation of players that is worthy of putting themselves alongside the squads of those two previous golden eras.
Obviously, I'll try to get back to the original question, the schedule. Why aren't they playing at Porirua Park in Wellington? Like that is that's the fortress of football in Wellington, Porirua Park, home of the Wellington Phoenix women. So yeah, okay, the All Whites should win both games. Hopefully they do win both games. What are we looking for with how they're playing their football? Like, is there a flying Kiwi situation that you're keeping track of? Is there a stylistic element of how the all Whites play their football? Give me a detail about All Whites soccer that I would need to keep an eye on.
Well, the last two, well, no, one of the windows was split, but the last three international fixtures have all been home games. So I think we got a good glimpse in those ones of what they'll try to do, which will be a relatively simple game plan. They will try to keep possession, but they will also look to be pretty attacking against opponents where they should be able to get away with that. It'll be a little bit interesting to see how they make up the midfield, because there have been games where you might there's a couple games where Joe Bell wasn't available, so Alex Rufus slots in alongside. But arguably their best performance of the Darren Baisley era was when they drew against America, where they actually had Rufa and Joe Bell playing together in the midfield. So you had two defensive midfielders really setting the screen for the defense. Don't really need that against Fiji, New Caledonia, and Tahiti, though, to be fair. So I think it'll be a little bit more about trying to get creativity, trying to create as many chances for Chris Wood as possible. They'll look to be good from set pieces, all that kind of stuff. And it'll be the usual suspects. And the good thing is a lot of those guys are in pretty good form. Like Chris Wood actually has dipped slightly lately. He's gone 4 games without a goal in the Premier League, which is his longest drought of the entire season so far. But it's also only 4 games. Like, it's not even a month's worth of footy. So don't think there's anything to worry about. It's more just a reflection of how good and how consistent he has been all season. And he's been scoring a lot of goals for the All Whites when he plays for them. In fact, him and Elijah Just have scored in each of the last 4 games for the All Whites. So there's actually a record they could tie if either of them scores in both of these next 2 games. I think Keith Nelson scored in 6 games in a row once upon a time. I think it was him. I broke it down in the email a little bit like last week in one of them, which is the record. But yeah, that could be leveled, probably not by Elijah Just, but he is in contention. More likely for Chris Wood, who's also the penalty taker and the main striker and the form dude and the fella that they try to build around. But like Callum McCallum scored a couple goals recently for his club team. Jesse Randall's been all right. I don't know what kind of minutes he'd get in this, but obviously Logan Rogerson as well. Both of them for Auckland FC have been playing very good football of late. Elijah Just actually had a little bit of an injury, so he only just came back this week, missed the previous 2 weeks, but looked pretty sharp while he was out there for St. Paulton. I watched that game and I thought he certainly didn't look like a fella who was struggling with injury. The one exception is Matt Garbutt, who obviously has not been playing much of anything at all, although Darren Baisley did say he's been getting some reserve team minutes at NSA Breeders, so that's something. It's under 21's football. It's not ideal, but it's at least it's something for him to keep him fit. Marko Stamenic, I suppose, if you want to count him as an attacking player, which in this context he would be, because he's going to be out there pinging passes left, right, and center. He's also struggling for minutes, but I mean, and Ben Waine. Yeah, Ben Waine's not in a very happy situation where he is as well. But there's a lot of players out there who are playing good football, who have been getting goals and assists for their clubs, and will be pretty confident coming into these games as well. And they are on the back of a few big wins in similar types of contests that they've had recently against Vanuatu, against Samoa, against Malaysia. should prepare the All Whites. They'll know exactly what they're getting into with these games. They'll know exactly what they got to do, and I expect they will pretty comprehensively do that.
Didn't mention Tyler Binden.
Didn't mention Tyler Binder, but I probably should have because I was thinking of the attacking players. But of course, he's not an attacking player, but he scores goals for Reading. So yeah.
You mentioned everyone else. Like you ran through the whole team of like, oh, this, yeah, whatever. But I want Tyler Binden. I just want to see
I should
more
have said
Tyler Binden.
Kakache as well because I think Kakache is someone who's going to be bursting for it. It does have a big impact on how the All Whites attack. But yes, Tyler Binden as well. Menace from set pieces, just a menace in general. He's the only one of these guys who scored an overhead kick this season, so he should be on the list of attacking threats as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to trump all you ran through like 100 details. I'm just going to say one, Tyler Binden. Watch out for Tyler Binden. He's awesome. He's playing on local territory. He is demanding your eyeballs, probably as a centre back for the All Whites. And I mean, he's probably going to be a starting centre back as well. Football Ferns.
He will be.
What's doing with the Football Ferns?
Well, they have a tour coming up in depends how politically correct you want to be, either Chinese Taipei or Taiwan, whichever you want to lean towards, which is very much an extension of the last tour to Costa Rica, where they're playing against a team that is ranked lower than them away from home, but also ranked lower enough that they should really be winning at least one or if not both of these games. However, the first game in Taiwan is it's like a behind closed doors friendly, so it's not going to be broadcast. It'll probably still be for caps. It'll probably still be a real game where they're not going to be making like 30 substitutions rolling off and on throughout. Probably still be functioning as a real game, but it's behind closed doors. It's to allow them to practice things, tactical things a little bit more. Second game will be open and broadcast, I'd imagine. But that does kind of make it another one of these. It's not that it's not a serious tour, it's that it's just not the most serious tour they're going to be going on. It's another one of these ones where they can use it a bit more for development, a bit more for building the team out, which is a strange situation when your coach is an interim and is supposedly that they said they're going to name the head coach after this tour. Again, same thing as last time. There's nothing about what Michael Main is saying or how he's acting that suggests that he doesn't think he can continue to do this job in perpetuity. So imagine that's those odds are getting shorter and shorter by the day that he's just going to continue on as the head coach unless some amazing candidates just applied behind the scenes and they've managed to keep a lid on that and no one knows anything about it yet. But it's looking more like a Michael Main regime, which is off the back of the Costa Rica stuff. Thought there were enough positives to be excited about that prospect. I am still nervous about one or two things though when it comes to like the selection stuff, because this is another tour where there's no CJ Bott, there's no Katie Bowen, no Rebecca Stott, which like if he'd just adequately explained that better, more directly last time, we could at least say, okay, well, they've been rested because they've got club stuff to focus on and we're looking at other players. That's all it has to be. And that is all it has to be. Like that might well be the case. But I still have suspicions over whether there might be some kind of like, whether perhaps the way the last coach left might have rankled a few things, and there was a bit of like player upheaval there. And those are senior players who would have definitely been involved in that. I wonder if there might be a little bit of a slap on the wrist on that. But like I said, with the Costa Rica stuff, as long as they come back in, like, okay, if you got to do that behind the scenes, whatever. But as long as they come back into the team, because those are your best players and your best defenders. And you're not going to be a better team without CJ Bott and Katie Bowen in there. But
you also deliberately said that this was not a super duper serious tour. Like it just seems
which is why it would have been super easy to explain. That's what's annoying about it.
It just seems like you're too deep in those mangroves, maybe.
That's which is also why I'm trying not to go deeper. I'm just like, we'll dangle this out there, but I don't want to go so deep as to lose a Jandal here. I'm just going to sort of wade through the mud and say this possibility hasn't been extinguished yet, like it could have been.
This to me, this is classic Black Caps. Black Caps tour Sri Lanka, Black Caps,
Yeah,
random ODI T20 series each summer. You just go deeper into your player pool. Like, it doesn't really, I don't see it as hugely important. Seems like Michael Main's going to be the coach moving forward. That's all good. You seem to identify the yuckiness with New Zealand football more than me, so that's just two different perspectives. But like, who's in the
yeah.
squad? Tell me about the squad. I don't care about you. Care a lot more about that peripheral stuff. I don't give a shit. I just want to know squad selection, who's in, who's out, who to watch out for.
Um, yeah. Well, there's at least the Black Caps explain their absences, arguably more than they need to as well. They'll go in to give absences for guys who maybe wouldn't have even been picked, but just be nice. But whether that's a Michael Main communication issue or whether that's just because it's the Football Ferns outside of a major tournament and no one's asking, that also might be the thing. Like, there's no one's doing that interview to figure it out. So yeah, we'll dangle that one out there, but we'll move on and say the squad is pretty similar to last time, except they've Finn Sim and Macy Fraser. There's a couple of injuries as well. Like Grace Jale has just come back from injury, so they're not risking her. Mackenzie Barry is also injured. Don't know if they're starting players in the system they were playing last time though. So I don't know if that is a huge one, but Macy Fraser certainly is, because Macy Fraser just started first game of the season for Utah Royals. She was in the starting lineup in the NWSL, one of the toughest leagues on the planet, and extremely hard to get into as an international player, especially a relatively young international player. So she's done brilliant there to get that role, which was pretty much forecast through preseason as well. Like the stuff her coach was saying, the lineups they were picking, it seemed like she was getting in the first 11 sort of sides a lot more often, and the coach was saying nice stuff. So it was all that's all been flowing very nicely for Macy Fraser, but she does need to trying to lock down that spot, and she missed a lot of time last year with ankle injuries. So I think they're just being safe and not picking her, but I do worry about that because she was so influential in the last tour, where it was like there was a notable difference between the Football Ferns without Macy Fraser on the pitch, which was the Football Ferns we're used to that can't create chances or score goals, and then the Football Ferns with Macy Fraser who were creating chances and scoring goals. And probably their second best player, attacking wise, second most influential player on that Costa Rica series was Indy Riley, who's playing as a wingback, but as a wingback getting an opportunity to attack a whole lot. And that's consistent with how she's been playing for Crystal Palace in England as well. But she missed the most recent Crystal Palace game with injury. There's still 2 weeks until they go to Chinese Taipei, so time for her to recover. But if she has some lingering issue and she's missing and Macy Fraser is missing, I think they're more reliant on a couple of those key attackers than they're maybe going to admit. So I have some, especially when because maybe Millie Clegg could bail you out a little bit, except Millie Clegg's hardly played any football for 12 months either, and she's still in preseason and for a Canadian club where she's on loan. So I have significant reservations there, and I think there were 1 or 2 players who maybe could have been selected instead to help, but like Maggie Jenkins as someone scoring goals in Turkey could have been a help. They have recalled Jana Radosavljevic, which I was surprised about. She always seems to be like the forgotten player who gets ignored in these ones, but she's playing quite well in Portugal at the moment. So I like that. I like that selection. Maybe with Devon Jackson, it was a case of she just returned from a significant injury. She fractured a bone in her face against the Phoenix, actually, playing for Newcastle at the start of the year. She missed a couple months. She's only been back the last 2 weeks. She scored on the weekend, actually, for Newcastle. Maybe that was a case of not recovering in time. Emma Main might have been someone else in contention. There's a few other players where it's even Chiara Berselli as a sort of speedy youngster will give you some good energy, let alone some of the ones who have Football Ferns experience who haven't been getting picked, these last 2 squads, Gabby Rennie most notably. Ava Collins would be another one. There's a lot of good attackers that we got, and you can only fit so many in a squad, so you got to make some decisions there, and those decisions have been made. But I do worry about how reliant they are on one or two players there, and if those one or two players aren't playing, you might get stretched a little bit more. But I guess the game against Chinese Taipei is probably the best time to figure that out and test it.
But
I'm thinking a
again,
little bit more bigger picture than that
yeah,
tour
like
when I say those things. But yeah,
you deliberately said this is not the most serious tour. So like to me, it just seems like they're just building out the other attacking options. Like they're just giving other people a go. There's situations with we know New Zealand football, all whites football ferns. They have to uh, deal with the individual situation at different clubs, injuries, form. Like you can't just select your best squad, your best team every single time. To like, I don't know what you're worried about. Like these are games in which they will test out other attacking players. They will need to give opportunities to other players. But I'm only saying that because again, you said this is not the most serious tour. So it's not like they're going to Spain and they're playing Spain and they have to try to compete. Like this is just another little tour in which they build out their depth. Different players get an opportunity. Like this is New Zealand football in 2025 when you got a lot of players around the world, and just seems like the football ferns are just trying to build out their competitive depth and work with the professional clubs around the world and the different situations there. You also mentioned Jesse Randall, he's in the all white squad, and he was pretty impressive watching him closely for Auckland FC in the A League. Of course, they had a draw. I'm coming at this from another angle as well because there was a bit of disappointment there for Auckland FC at home, conceding a late equaliser.
second
Headlines,
home game in a row they've done that too.
there you go. Headlines, oh, they drop points, like all this stuff. They're top of the table. They're the best team. 20 games into an A-League season. Like, it's not going to be perfect. They're not going to win every game. They're not just going to steamroll all the opposition and keep rocking and rolling. Yes, it was against the Mariners. But again, as I've kind of observed, there's a lot of different guys getting a lot of game time at Auckland FC, a lot of different combinations being used, players coming in and out with injury. These little mishaps happen. They've had 3 draws in their last 5 games. They're not losing these games. Right? Like, I don't, like, obviously the Phoenix fans, they'll poke fun at Auckland FC conceding a late equaliser. Again, the headlines, they carry this negative tinge. Auckland FC drop points at Mount Smart, whatever. All right. They're 12, 6 and 2. 42 points, top of the league. They've still only conceded 20 goals. They're just grinding through an A-League season, and it's like, it's not the longest season in the footballing world. But you're playing at least 20 games because they've all played 20 games. How many more games to go off the top of your head?
Yeah, 7 or 8, something like that.
Yeah, like this is the dark period of an A-League season.
Yeah,
I'd expect them to fine tune towards finals footy and push towards winning the A-League championship. But I'd like Auckland FC to win these games, dominate, play their best footy. You can't play your perfect footy game every single round. And when Auckland FC slip up, at least recently, they're drawing. Like, okay, that's terrible. If that's terrible, the standard for Auckland FC is pretty awesome. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just on this like alternative footballing streak over the last 30 minutes. I don't know, but where do you sit with that?
yeah. Well, I don't have to disagree with you on this one because that was pretty much my thoughts too. Like I was disappointed they didn't beat Central Coast because I'd said before I thought they'd actually thrash them. I thought this was going to be a bounce back game. But Central Coast have some class players in there. It's like they've lost a lot of the players who won their last 2 championships with them, but they still have a few. Like Brian Keltic was that centre back in that game. You know, that's not going to be easy at any point. They played quite well. The 2 goals Auckland conceded were awful. Like they were both very sloppy ones, uncharacteristic, but also who wasn't there? And Panica wasn't there. It's probably a significant factor in that. Dan Hall returning from a long injury break as well, his first game back. I thought he was all right. He certainly wasn't to blame for either of the goals they conceded, but there might be some rustiness with their partnership because I don't think he would have played with Tommy Smith a whole lot as a centre back pairing. And as far as the fact that certainly thought they should have, once they got 1-0 up, they should have been able to get 2-0 up at some stage. But if you're being a little bit less, what's the word? A little bit less sort of, you're not putting your chances away in the same way that you might be expecting yourselves to. If you're not quite hitting those standards that you've set in recent weeks, well, also who wasn't playing there was Max Mata, and Max Mata has been so efficient for them when he's been in the starting lineup. Like his goals and assists per 90 minutes stat is crazy. He's way up there. And yeah, he's out with a calf injury at the moment, which I also wonder sneakily whether Darren Baisley might have picked Max Mata ahead of Ben Waine for the All Whites had he been available, because I actually think on form, he should have. I think Max Mata was playing better football than Ben Waine, who's hardly playing any football for Mansfield Town. So that was a decision he got to avoid because of unfortunate timing of Mata's injury. But I think Auckland FC is seeing a little bit of that. Well, that looks like maybe as well for them too. But also and Verstraete as well. Like the guy you might have wanted to bring on when you go 2-1 up to close out the game. Well, he's not available because he was also suspended. So they were working through a few different options. They were working without a couple of the regulars who have set the tone for so many of their good performances. They did slip up and concede another late equalizer at Mount Smart, but also they, like you say, didn't lose either of those games, and they didn't lose when they went down to 10 men against Newcastle Jets in between away from home either. So if these are your bad performances and you're still grinding out 3 points from 3 games, staying more than 3 points clear at the top as well. I think they're 4 points clear, but have a game in hand on Western United. Like they're cruising towards the minor premiership.
And I was really impressed with Randall. Like he had the run in behind to set up one of the goals, but he had some silky touches, just one touch, laying it off for because I haven't seen a lot of Randall, but I mean, he's got a bit of flair to doing the really hard mahi as well, like bursting onto the ball, rugged defense. I was pretty impressed with Randall, and he's just another youngster getting game time for Auckland FC, which is an underrated element of their excellent first up season.
Yeah, and the thing to know about Randall is when he was with Wellington Olympic a couple of years ago when they won the National League, like he was the leading assist maker in the entire National League that season. So he is a speedy winger. He's going to run in behind and try to score goals, but he sets them up as well. Like he's got vision, he's got passing too.
If Auckland FC's draw was just, I'm just putting it as a long season result. Like you have your ups and downs. They're down as a draw, so all good. Wellington Phoenix also had a draw against Sydney FC. Just how would you describe this draw?
Well, I think it was, if Auckland FC's was a steady as you go kind of thing, then the Phoenix to get a draw away to Sydney FC is a big positive. That's a big step up for them to be able to get a result like that. And ironically, for the critique about them being too defensive, it's actually when they play quite defensive like this, particularly in away games, when they're kind of better. Like they were certainly against Sydney. They nullified what Sydney FC were doing pretty well. Didn't make for a very entertaining game, but they had little flashes in there. Like the first sort of 30 minutes, it looked like here's a team that's just going to lump long balls over the top when they get it and ask Costa to chase it, which is like, you've been doing a lot of this that doesn't work. Like it's not working here either. But then they just figured a couple of things out, got a little bit more possession in the other half, and Chico Heraldez, nice ball through to Costa Barbarouses, stays on side, scores, equalizes, and just getting that goal to tie the game back up after they'd conceded a sloppy one early on, as they seem to be doing a way too often this season. They were right after that. Like Chiefy City felt like they had the potential to go on and win that game. That felt like a step too far, but I certainly felt like they were good value for a draw. And I think when was it that Hughes went off? 72 minutes. So it was only the last 20 minutes there, but they had to fight through a little bit of defensive upheaval there as well. One of your centre backs isn't able to complete the game due to just picking up a knock along the way. Corbin Piper comes on, finishes the job. It was a good enough performance from them, and I'd say like. Yeah, it's not quite like Warriors between Vegas and Mount Smart difference where you can, because I think with the Phoenix, the effort has generally been there. Even in the Auckland FC hiding, there were phases within that game where they just shot themselves in the foot. It's like there was that spell there when they conceded 3 goals in a short space of time prior to halftime, which ruined the whole game for them. But a lot of that second half was quite competitive even then in that game. Like they've generally had the effort and the mostly the intensity required, not always the confidence and the like playing on the front foot and taking the right kind of risk stuff though. But the application has been there. It was nice for them to get a little bit of reward for that because like it's not that well, I'd say it doesn't feel like they've been that far off, but actually it has. In the last few weeks, since the Derby game, it's felt like they've drifted further and further. Start of the season didn't feel like they were that far off where they wanted to be. More recently, it has. So it was good to see. Yeah, it was a nice result for them away from home, and hopefully they can kick on and actually win something in New Zealand at some point this season.
The Wellington Phoenix women had a 2-1 loss, obviously, in Australia against Sydney FC. I say obviously because they usually lose in Australia. I don't think the Wellington Phoenix women are going to play finals footy. Are you still holding on to the possibility that the Wellington Phoenix women can play finals footy?
The possibility, absolutely. I got to check the see if I can find the. I follow too many
Well,
things here, but
anything is possible, but I'm predicting they will not make the finals. So what's your prediction?
They are 2 points off the finals with, I think, three, maybe four games to go. They're through 2 points off of the top six. So I still think they can. Prediction, after losing away in Sydney, it makes it a lot harder to say yes, but I'll give them a 60-40 chance. I'll go the overs on that. If you want to say no, I'll say yes just to keep the podcast interesting. I think they got a chance, especially because let me check how many. Seeing as they always lose 2-1 or 1-0 away from home, no matter what happens, even in a really good performance against Sydney. I thought it was a really good performance against Sydney in this game, but they concede from their only 2 shots on target that Sydney had, including one right at the end after they'd been reduced to 10 didn't help. But
I'm sure you're going to bring up
three of their last 4 games are at home.
Right, so I'm sure you're going to bring up some
Fortress.
extra details, some schedule, like how this could be possible. Like, I don't have any of that information. I don't care. I'm saying the Wellington Phoenix women are not a finals A-League team. That is I guess I've kind of been building to that all season, and especially recent weeks because I've noticed you kind of, keeping that flame flickering. I just don't think they're a finals team. And again, so you're going to say 3 out of their 4 games at Porirua Park, the fortress that is Porirua Park. Big respect to Porirua Park, the best football stadium in Wellington, second best stadium, ground, arena in Wellington behind the Basin Reserve. That does make me think. It does make me ponder the Wellington Phoenix women possibly getting into finals. Give me their opponent.
Right. Well, the remaining matches, home to Central Coast, who are 6th, so they could be in the top 6 next week if they win that game. Then home to Melbourne City, which is a frisky one because even at home, that's hard for them to beat that team. Don't think they've ever beaten Melbourne City. Away to Canberra, another team just above them on the table. And that is a place they have won before, going to Canberra. They have got results there. Probably the most Wellington-esque part of Australia. So, the respective capitals and everything. And then home to Western United to finish, who are fourth. So they're pretty much all four of these games are against teams above them currently on the table. But three of those teams are between fourth and seventh, where it's like, especially at home, they can win those games. I'm not saying they will win those games, but they can. They're capable of it. So the remaining draw isn't too bad as far as what they could hope for or expect over the final month of the season. But you got to put some chances away if they're gonna make it happen. They've been better at doing that in those home games. They do have a decent home record this season, but I mean, we saw it pretty glaringly away to Sydney FC, where it's like they were the better team for most of that game. Didn't help that they got a red card. It was Tiana Jaber with like 15 minutes to go, and sort of spoiled the momentum heading towards the finish line there. But they'd done enough to that point already to have felt like they should have been ahead. And Paul Temple called it an injustice afterwards, which is what a coach should be saying to keep his team's heads up. But it felt that way, but also it's not really injustice if the way you're losing is the same way that you keep losing every time you play away from home. It's not really, it actually is more of a trend than anything else. But as I say, they've been a little bit better, a little bit more clinical when it comes to playing those games at home at the Fortress of Pororua Park. So hopefully that's the tipping point for them. I'm still giving them that 60-40 chance.
I'm going to stick to my beliefs here, my intuition. I'm going to say they will not make finals. It is interesting because Mariners, Canberra Raiders, Canberra United, they're on the cusp. Do have a couple of Uniteds here. It's not all just FCs in the women's competition. And shout out to Newcastle Jets sticking with the no FC there. So they do have two games that will dictate finals footy against the Mariners, against Canberra. But having not watched them recently, I still believe, from what I've seen this season, that the Wellington Phoenix women are not a finals team. That is based on the still kind of wishy-washy style of play and not necessarily resolute defense. And the wishy-washy style of play leads to a lot of turnovers, which I still believe challenges their defense a lot. Hard and fast question, who is the best player for the Wellington Phoenix women this season?
Oh, it's sort of like first equal. But if you push me for one, I think I'm ready to say that Annalie Longo's gone ahead of Maya McCutcheon in the performance tag. So I'm going with Longo, who's been superb and really feels like the one who is keeping the team's heads up, keeping the efforts and application high with just her own insane work rate, creating so many chances. She's did she set up? She might have set up the goal for Minai Elliott on the weekend even. So continuing to like create good stuff for them, and also being so important for them at the beginning of their possessions as well as the end of the possession. She's been fantastic. Pretty much brought that to the Football Ferns last tour as well. So I expect that as another crossover with the Fernies and Chinese Taipei, as you'll probably see a fair bit of Annalie Longo in the midfield.